YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. We just had a big trade today. Ravens, Vikings struck a deal. Yannick Ngakoue, which makes this weird because the Vikings just traded for Yannick Ngakoue, has been traded to the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm here to break it down and give you my grades. It's going to be a real quick video. YouTube's kind of made it pointless and a waste of time for creators to upload videos less than 10 minutes, but it's going to be under 10 minutes. We still got you here. So please show your support. Subscribe to the channel. 60K, trying to reach that, getting close. Follow that Twitter. We're always talking about deals like this right when they happen. You kind of get a first look through Twitter, live tweeting during games. If you don't have a Twitter, I recommend you make one and you turn notifications on. It'll be worth it. Instagram, podcast, Patreon, a lot of content going on. On that Patreon. Always adding more. The people involved with the top tier, we're starting to add ways for them to get more involved. Those people will see what I mean very shortly. Junior score predictions. He's leading the Goat House picks, so it'd be good to see Junior score predictions. My bets of the week, doing very, very well on those, and college football content as well. Updated playoff predictions for the first time went up. You'll see my predicted seeds and then round by round winners, Super Bowl winner. We'll do that every single week. A lot going on in that Patreon link in description comments. The trade, Yannick Ngakoue to the Ravens. The Vikings get a third-round pick in a 2022 fifth-round pick. That can become a fourth if he's a first ballot Pro Bowler. I almost just said a Hall of Famer. Pro Bowler. So, yeah. And remember, the Vikings it felt like they just traded for Yannick Ngakoue. They traded away a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick. They basically they moved down 50 spots or so in the draft for nothing because they don't have a player now at the gain. So they basically, I remember Jaguars pick, the Ravens pick pretty late, most likely. So that's what the Vikings are receiving. And they traded away their picks, which were looking like they're going to be pretty early. That second-round pick's going to be a fairly early pick here. And the Ravens get a good pass rusher, which they desperately needed. Let's show the grades. We'll start with the Ravens. A+ for the Ravens. I think they got him for less than his value. He's really starting to heat up this season, getting some pressure, getting some sacks. If you're looking at the stats as well, going back to week 1, he played under 50% snaps, right around 50%, and they kind of eased him in there. And he's been pretty productive given that as well. But mainly looking at, and there is a downside. I still gave him an A+, obviously, but there is a slight negative here. And we'll get that out of the way, actually. Ravens play 3-4. He's more familiar with the 4-3. But in Jacksonville, he kind of stood up. He kind of stood up in a 4-3, which is usually used for 3-4 edge rushers. So I'm not too worried. I think he'll fit actually pretty well there in the Ravens scheme of 3-4. He'll get to stand up a little more. He's actually more familiar with that. But that's something that just a little bit of a scheme switch. But something I've been talking about for the Ravens actually, even in the offseason, but especially during the season, the Ravens generate their pressure through blitz. They're a very good blitzing team, and it looks wonderful. It looks fantastic against most teams. When they play the Chiefs, it doesn't look too good. That's a big reason why they lose to the Chiefs, because pressure is one of the most important things in football. You can throw off any quarterback by getting pressure, some more than others. But blitzing against Mahomes is a big no, because he can read it, he can avoid it, he can throw against it, he can throw on the run against it, and then that's exactly what we saw when the Ravens play the Chiefs. They have to pretty much go away from their game because you have to get pressure. The only way they can get it is blitzing. They pretty much have to change their defense, and that kind of applied against a team like the Titans in the playoffs as well. So it seems like the really good quarterbacks or the contending teams, their game plan doesn't work. It works wonders against normal teams. And they still are a very good blitzing team, but they needed to add more edge rush. Judon's pretty solid. He's pretty inconsistent, though. So adding that's going to keep teams on their toes. They're going to blitz, and they got guys rushing. What's going to happen here? They don't need to rely on the blitz as much. So this was their biggest need. And again, against those normal teams, the average week, I guess, playing against, who are they playing against? The Bengals, the Eagles, it looks like receiver might be their biggest need. It is a pretty big need, but going against the contenders, edge rusher, and actual edge rusher is the biggest need. So they filled that here with Yannick Ngakoue. Cheaper deal than you would think, but it's only 1 year. So this could be a rental, We'll see. That's hasn't been decided yet. But they definitely get better with this addition. This makes them better against the good quarterbacks, against the contending teams, which is basically the same teams. So this, and again, I think they gave up less than the value here. I think I was actually projecting Yannick Ngakoue to be possibly on the trading block, or the Vikings could be taking calls, but I didn't think they would let him go for this. So extremely good value. Now to the Vikings grade. Pretty interesting because they got an F. Well, that's not really not why it's interesting. I don't know. Have I given out? I've done a lot of these. I can't remember if I've given out an F. I probably have. But why it's interesting because I almost gave them 2 grades. First, I almost gave them 2 grades because I think grading the original trade and grading this trade are actually different. Because we can go back and trade the original trade, and you lost something on that. Like I said, basically you move back 50 spots. You swap a second for a third, and that's it. You don't gain anything. So that obviously gets an F minus if that's a real grade. F minus on the original trade, and on this trade, let's take away what they did previously. What's happening in the now? Usually how I grade. And the fact that they're losing right now, it's not looking good. They would have to re-sign him after this year. They don't know if spending money is the right situation. They may want to gain draft picks. So looking at it that way, it could be a little better than the F minus, a little better. But I ended up just making 1 grade here. I kind of combined the 2 scenarios with the original trade and the trade in the now. Forget what happened in the past. Let's live in the now here. And I came up with an F. So I bumped up the F minus to an F. That's because, like I said, you could think of it as, all right, they already have Ngakoue. Let's not go in the past. The Vikings, do they want to extend him? Obviously, they decided they didn't want to extend him. They could have franchise tagged him, but they obviously decided they didn't want to. They want to gain picks. They're not in the moment to win right now. So you could say maybe it's not the worst trade. They gained picks. They weren't going to extend him anyways. But again, I think they could have gotten more. I think he could have been a part of the future. What is he? 25, 26 years old. Pairing him with Danielle Hunter for the future. It's a shame that we didn't ever get to see those two play together. I think he could have been part of the future. And I was predicting that his name could come up. I wasn't predicting a trade to actually happen, but because it's a 1-year deal, because those reasons the Vikings season hasn't gone to plan, they could actually trade him. But I thought they would at least get what they traded away back. And I actually thought they can get more. There's teams that are more desperate now. Teams like the Ravens, they realize that we're an edge rusher away from hanging with the contender teams. A team like the Cardinals lost Chandler Jones. There's several teams we can talk about that can, those teams that have realized they can be more of a contender with an edge rusher, should have valued him pretty high. So I think the Vikings not only traded him early, I think they traded him for lower than what they could have got. I guess they know more than everybody else, but and they lost on the original deal as well. So this is clearly an F. Bumped them up from an F minus, given that what their situation is now. But it's still an F. I've been a huge Rick Spielman fan, the Vikings GM, because he's collected all kinds of talent. I guess he's failed at finding offensive linemen. It's something that's very tough for a lot of teams, but he's found some gems. He's really good trading within the draft, has been really good in the past trading in general, has found some really talented players, some steals. So I've been a fan of him, but there's such thing as being a GM for too long. And it kind of going south. And I think that's a simple case of that here. He's built some good talent, but they have been unable to win. Maybe it's not his fault. But over time, when you're kind of doing your job and you're not winning, you kind of change up what you're doing. You get a little crazy. These guys that are a little older, they've been there for so long, they kind of change their ways. And I think with the recent moves of extending Kirk Cousins and the whole Yannick Ngakoue small experience, short-lived experience, it shows that he's kind of changed his philosophy just because it's kind of getting into his head that they're not winning. And that, to me, that says it might be time to move on. But it is very hard finding a replacement, so that would be the reason maybe not to. But it's not looking good right now. So a big F for fail for the Vikings here in this Yannick Ngakoue situation. Definitely looking forward to see if the Vikings move on from other. It's gonna be extra confusing if they don't try to move on from more players now, because this is kind of a dipping your toes in the rebuild. I don't think they'll ever go back to stage one a rebuild because they have too many solid pieces. But I think they'll kind of go that way where they gain picks. Maybe I play stages by rebuild. Not all the way to stage one, maybe stage three if that makes any sense at all. But it won't make any sense if they don't kind of go all in. They dip their toe in there. But then they don't go in. So really looking forward to, I don't know if I am. I'm just curious to see what the Vikings do in the next week or two with the trade deadline coming up. We're going to have trade deadline videos, possible scenarios, what teams should do. We might have multiple videos on that, and then we'll grade all the moves after. So we got you covered. We got you covered fully here at the Goat House. So please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, follow that Twitter to must follow, link down below for that, and the Patreon. That's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.